What's up, guys? Welcome to the WedBegin podcast,
where wedding businesses starts.
My name is Eli. I'm an owner of a photo video DJ business in the wedding space.
I'm Jordan. I'm the owner of a mobile bar business in the wedding space.
So today we're going to be talking about why now is the perfect time to start your wedding business.
The wedding industry is booming, and it is so important for those who want a second stream of income, who want to start a part-time job, or just want to get into business in general, need to start looking at the wedding industry.
Yeah, so today we're kind of just going to be like laying this out like a conversation. Me and him are just going to kind of talk. Honestly, me and Jordan are pretty new friends ourselves, so
That's right.
There's going to be a lot of stuff that we don't know as much about each other anyways. So we figured it's a great time to just talk about like how we both began our businesses and what that looked like for both of us. So basically, tell them a little bit about you and like what your business does and how you got started with that.
Yeah, thank you, Eli. So I own a Prosecco truck. It's a tap truck. We've got 5 taps on it. Initially, we bought this business. So I've owned a few other businesses, never in the wedding industry until 3 years ago when I got into the wedding industry, and I never kind of looked back. This has been my most successful business, and it makes me want to do even more in this industry. The mobile bar business is essentially a mobile bar that you can book for weddings and other events as well, but we primarily work in the wedding space. Couples will book us to be their bar the entire night. We bring our Prosecco truck up, and we have stuff on tap, and it's a really cool way to get into the industry. Something that's eye-catching, something that people remember. And that's kind of the key. So that's sort of what my mobile bar business is, and that's what we kind of thrive off of. Tell us a little bit more about your 3 sort of businesses.
Well, Well, we have one business, but we do all 3. We're kind of a one-stop shop for photo, video, DJ. I got started in this industry actually as young as 5 years old because my parents were wedding DJs themselves part-time. Theirs was kind of more of a side hustle. So when I got a little older, I decided, I'm going to kind of pick up where they left off and build something that's more full-time. And I went to school for photography and videography, and I decided that, hey, that's a great place to start my business, and ended up bringing it right back home to adding our DJ services on too. And for me, man, it's just like I love being in the atmosphere of like working with couples and just being able to be a part of somebody's like most special moments. I think is one of the most valuable aspects about being a wedding professional. With a lot of other businesses, like you might be doing something that's awesome, you might be doing something that's more short term, but like this is like one of the few businesses where what you're doing, I feel, is like really like important. It has like a long-term impact on the people that are involved. And so for me, that's just like my bread and butter. I love being able to be a part of like that special day of somebody's life.
It's the day nobody forgets.
Yeah. What makes you want to do like the mobile bar stuff? Like we'll get into that.
So when I first saw this Prosecco truck, this Prosecco tap truck, whatever you want to call it, it's a very common thing in Europe, but there's very few here in the States. And I just knew that I could like turn this into a business. And so that's really what we did. We had it was 2 months after my wife and I got married that we bought this truck, and we said, let's do something and try to make some money with this. And little did we know that it would kind of like take off, because of the limited competition with tap trucks in New England where we live. We kind of tapped into a gold mine a little bit, and have been every season. This is our 3rd year, and every weekend we have something. So
well, yeah, because that's definitely a big other reason like that is so awesome being in the wedding space. It is a lucrative space too. Oh, yeah. So it's like you can make good money, you can have a good time, and you can be a part of like that most special day of somebody's life, like I said, and I think that like trinity of like awesomeness is like what makes the wedding space such a great place to be, especially in 2025 right now, like post-COVID, where we're seeing like such surges in weddings. There's a shortage of like wedding pros, and there's a surge of weddings. So it's like it just really works out really well. I think this is the perfect time to be in the wedding space.
Right. I'm a business geek. Not that I have an MBA, which is like whatever, you just get a degree. Yeah. But I've owned I don't even know, probably 10 plus businesses, probably 6 true LLCs. And a lot of them have failed. I didn't make any money from them. But the thing is I've learned, I've been in the trenches, and I really learned how to start a business, grow a business, build websites, and make money either online or in person. And one thing about the wedding industry is just how recession proof it is.
Yeah.
Like here we are with an economy that's really shaky. Tariffs are threatening a lot of industries. The wedding industry certainly like is threatened, but people will always get married. People always have a need to get married, right? You'd hope.
Yeah, no, you're right, man.
Yeah.
God willing, hopefully everybody's going to keep getting married. And that you're
Yeah.
right. It's like recession proof in that sense that, you know, even when the economy is down, people still have to get married. And people are still usually willing to spend a little bit more money on a wedding than they are on other things in their life, you know, just because it's, like I said, the most important day of everybody's life. So, you know, when it comes down to that, it's harder to put a price tag on things, I think.
Beside the, you know, the recession proofness of businesses in the wedding industry, the startup costs are really low as well, right? I know for us, mobile bar business, so you can do a few things. And again, mobile bar businesses are really popular, but whether or not you have a tap truck or not is what kind of sets you apart. So that's kind of where I thrive in. But you know, you can get into a business for a really low startup cost. For us, we purchased a Prosecco truck between invested about $10,000 to $20,000, and was able to build a business out of it. And within a year, you know, because people book you out in the wedding industry a year, 2 years in advance at times.
Yeah.
You know, we had a booking once that was 2.5 years in advance, and I was like, congrats for planning that ahead of time. But so you have this income that's coming in, you know, from deposits because they booked you, and you didn't even do an event yet, right? So you can really, you know, take that opportunity and start to pay yourself back really quick with any wedding.
Well, that's why I always say it's great for bootstrapping. Like, just be able to pay off any debt you incur. Like, initially, you're able to pay it off really quick with those deposits that you get from people with that cash flow. So, you know, I think that's a huge element of like what makes this business great too, is because you have 2 paychecks almost with every wedding, you know, by doing that as well. I love that, all that stuff about the wedding business. And obviously, like we mentioned, even just like the high revenue potential, like clearly, you know, if you're charging $5,000 to $10,000 for your wedding service, whatever it is, whether it's the bar car, photo, video, DJ, you know, that can add up really quick. All it takes is like 2, 3, maybe 4 if you want to do more weddings, you know, a month. And by that point, you know, you're making 6 figures. It doesn't take that long. And I think that's something that a lot of people, maybe because in the beginning it's a little slower, so they don't realize maybe how to get there. And I know for myself even, and that's part of the reason why, you know, I sat down with you and I was like, bro, we need to start this course. Because like, I feel like for me, it was a slow process to get to 6 figures. But once you get there, you start to realize all the things you could have done in the beginning, you know, that would have prompted you to get there faster. And so that's really why I think like it's so important that, like, you know, especially because another big reason why I came up, you know, with this thought, like, well, bro, why don't we do a course for beginners? Because like there's a lot of courses out there in the wedding space that teach pros, like people that have already been in the industry for a while, maybe people that are already making $5,000, $10,000 a month. But once you like want to break to that like $20,000 a month, those are the people, like, you know, they're already existent, those courses to get you to 20,000. But there's not a lot of courses out there to help you get to 5,000 or 10,000. And that's obviously the first step, because you have to make some money before you start to really grow and expand the business. So that's for me like a big reason why I thought WedBegin was just a cool idea. But I don't know, what are your thoughts on like the actual course and like WedBegin and whatnot?
It's exciting because you know, a lot of people, I preface that right a little wrong, but a lot of people price themselves out right off the bat when they get into a business. They, you know, will really start, you know, their sales low. They'll start selling their product or service at a really low cost to get as many bookings as possible, and then a year later, you know, maybe they got a bunch of bookings and they built a book of business and they have clients and they have reviews, but they didn't make any money, and now they kind of are losing their shirt. So having a course like this where you can learn from others who've been in this space and from tested and true, you know, knowledge in the wedding industry is really gonna help you get past that, right? And make sure you're pricing things correctly, reaching out to the right venues, vendors to make connections and get in the right communities to really grow your business. So.
And honestly too, like, just like for me, I would say the biggest issue that I had when I started my wedding business was and this might be different for you because you have a business degree, but for me, it was like setting up systems, like having systems that are gonna work and that you can just use on repeat. Because in the beginning, like managing contracts and managing wedding dates and managing, contract employees and managing all these things, at the beginning for me, it was overwhelming. And it was simply because I didn't have a system, And I think a system in every regard is important. You need a system for your sales. You need a system for your acquisition. You need a system for your disposition. So without those systems, you're not going to be able to provide a good service. And ultimately, you will end up failing. And so I think that's a big thing like that I struggled with in the beginning, and I stuck with it. But there's a lot of people out there that'll go through that struggle that I went through, and they'll just be like, oh, it's just the wedding business. They're going to blame it on the wedding business rather than realizing, hey, maybe there's a flaw in how I've been running things. And so that's really, I think, a big thing that we're able to provide with this course too, is just like helping you to set up the right systems for your business.
Right. Because we've figured it out. We have been there. We started from nothing, right? And we were able to build a business. So we do have these systems in place. And I know you have you have a few systems as far as like lead magnets and getting people just to book a call with you, right?
Yeah.
And those are so important. You can't just expect to, run Facebook ads and Instagram ads or whatever, make relationships with venues and, people flooding in. You really have to kind of, once they reach out, you really got to capture them, and you got to figure that out, how to talk with them and get them to actually book with you. Because, let's face it, for most of these businesses, we aren't the only one, right? Yeah. There's other people, they may have a better price than us, but what makes our service special enough for us to, for them to want to book us?
Well, I think even like kind of stemming off what you said there is just like having multiple points of contact with everybody, because if they see your name in an ad when they're scrolling, like odds are they're not going to think much about it. But if they see your name in an ad and then they see your business name on that venue's preferred vendors list, and then they see you at the expo, and then, and they start to see you multiple places, that's where I usually have the quickest, easiest closes, is when people have seen me multiple places, because now I have an established reputation. Yeah. And and that's something that we kind of dive into in the course too, is like, how do you establish a reputation? And I think that's like one of the most beneficial things to all businesses, not just wedding businesses, but any business you try to tap into. So,
right.
But yeah.
Yeah, and the first piece of WedBegin is really our discovery course, and that's like, how can we help you figure out what business that you'd be best at running? Because you may not have any interest or have never had any interest in the wedding space, but maybe you would be a fantastic videographer or photographer. You post on social media all the time. You make awesome content on social media. Maybe you just need a fancy camera, and you just need to go do shoots with people, and that's the space for you. Our discovery course is going to help you try to figure that out and place you in those businesses. So there's 13 solid wedding businesses within that course that we can help place you in. Everything from being a wedding officiant to makeup and hair, mobile bar, video, photo, DJ, florist. There's so much potential, and there's even things coming up with just selfie stands. People are literally renting selfie stands, or video. I've seen 360 cameras, and you can just start a business doing that, and people can rent you. Very low startup cost, right? Yeah. But do you have the personality to run a business like that? Being a DJ, you have that personality, right? That's a tough personality, right? You have to really be passionate about it. You got to be able to put yourself out there. So not everybody can just start, a DJ business. Yeah.
Well, and I think that's the nice thing about the discovery course is it's not going to just like, we're not just going to put you somewhere. We're going to give you all the things that you need to know about each of these industries. And basically, you're going to have to sit there with some work that we're going to give you, some spreadsheets to work on, to basically figure out like, well, who am I and where do I fit into all of this? Because obviously you might in your head think, oh, I'd love to be a DJ, but then once you see like all the things that it requires to be a good DJ, you might think, maybe I'm not specifically meant to be a DJ. Maybe I should open a mobile bar cart, or maybe I should do a photography business, or whatever it is. You might find though that there's certain elements within each of these industries within the wedding space that that just really reflect your personality the best. And I think that's like so important, especially with the wedding business, because like you're working with couples one-on-one and they're gonna know if you're being phony, and they're also gonna they're gonna have a certain expectation of like who they're working with and what that person is like and what they do. Like they're gonna expect that their DJ has a big fun personality. They're not gonna want somebody that's shy. So if you're shy, obviously DJing is not gonna be for you. But if you have a more reserved personality, you might be better doing something like floral, because you're not gonna be up there in front of people. You can be shy and be a great florist, as long as you're able to communicate and you're a good organizer, right? So finding what it's gonna be in the truest sense for you, like how are you gonna actually bring the best thing you can bring to the wedding space. Because I honestly, I don't know, that's like one of my mantras, man, is just whatever you do, do it the best you can do it.
Right.
And if you realize, and you can honestly look at yourself and say, hey, I might not be the best fit for that, rather than trying to force it, just doing it, only if it's meant for you, if you're that type of person,
Dude, this is the biggest day of people's lives.
Yeah.
They are not going to book somebody who's just going to, give them a spiel, book them into, on a sales call, book them into their, DJing business or whatever, and not do their research. I read a stat, because of the economy right now, people have actually changed from 5 to 6 months it takes people to actually book somebody. So they might reach out to you, and it might not be until 5 to 6 months later that they actually book you. People are doing their research because this is the biggest day of their lives. You want to have, if you're a DJ, you're going to want to have referrals out there. You're going to want to have your reviews. You're going to want to have, social media with videos on everything you're doing, because people will need to research you. They're not just gonna give you thousands of dollars. The average price of a wedding last year was $29,000, right?
Yeah.
So people are spending lots of money, and they're not just gonna book anybody.
Well, I mean, it's literally a $70 billion industry hiding in plain sight. You've been to many weddings, and most people don't think about how much it actually costs to do a wedding. Yeah. And so because they're not thinking about how much it costs to do the wedding, they're not necessarily thinking about how much the professionals involved in the wedding are able to make, Right. It's a pretty lucrative career. So to help relate with you, if you're in this new beginning stage of getting into the wedding business, me and Jordan are gonna go back and forth with some questions, talking a little bit about the way our businesses started. And we're gonna talk about both the pros, the cons, the struggles, and the triumphs. And I think this is such an important way for us all to communicate as wedding professionals, just so we know the truth, what went wrong with you and what went right for you. And starting off, I just want to know, for you, what would you say held you back at the start? Was there anything that made you feel like you weren't ready to start this business, or?
Yeah. So I mean, being in the bar space, in the liquor space, there's quite a few ways you could go about it. And I would say a majority of our competitors are dry hires. So, if you're interested in a mobile bar, you can either book somebody as a dry hire, or you can have them bring everything. Dry hire meaning the client provides you with all the alcohol and everything. So you're just being basically rented as a bartender with your equipment and anything to show up. The other way to go is what we call our all-inclusive, and you actually have to have a liquor license for that. So it's difficult, right? There's a lot of laws. So, and just in general, the mobile bar space isn't for everybody because there's risks, You're serving people alcohol, and you're liable for them. So you need to make sure you're doing everything correctly, safely, monitoring everybody, especially when there's 150 people at a wedding and their only goal is to just drink and get drunk. It's a risky business. So if there was one thing that held me back, it was that, but it was just, how I viewed the business as a whole, and I saw the potential that sort of just outweighed everything else, and I thought it would be just an awesome venture. What about you? Anything hold you back from the start?
Honestly, for me, it was just like, and this goes for starting any business, but for me, it happened to be, I knew that the wedding business was on my heart and it was what I wanted to do. But the thing that was holding me back was that I had a full-time job and I just couldn't put the time in to really see like all the benefits that come with owning your own business. And so for me, it took a leap of faith at some point where I had to decide, rather than putting in 40 hours a week for this company, what if I put all those 40 hours into my own business? Now, obviously, that's risky in the beginning, and I'm thankfully I was single at the time. I don't have a family, I don't have kids, so I was able to take that risk, and it was a little bit mitigated by those factors. Yeah. But at the same time, it's still a risk, and nobody wants to potentially not have a roof over their head. But I think the best people in any business are the ones that are willing to take that big risk, and especially in business, because if you're not taking risks, then you're not going to see those rewards. And if you do get rewards from smaller risks, there'll be smaller rewards. So I feel like for me, that was the biggest thing that held me back, was just like not knowing, that uncertainty. I liked the certainty of a weekly paycheck and knowing that I had hours and I always was going to be able to pay my bills. But I was always going to be paying my bills and just making ends meet,
Right.
So that's why for me it was like, what do I do to get out of that? And I finally was able to break that and just say, you know what, I'm just going to take the leap. And I think that one of the best things that I did in my life was just taking that leap of faith to just be like, no, I'm going to take 40 hours and instead of giving it to somebody else for 20 or 30 bucks an hour, I'm going to take that and I'm going to put it all into my own business and see how much I can benefit from that. And I did that for 6 months at first. And I was like, that's what I'm going to do. Just do it for 6 months, no job, just try to do it. And then that 6 months turned into a year, and that year turned into 2 years, and now we're 5 years later.
Yeah.
So, it's like that whole process of just the fear of the unknown. And that's a totally relatable thing, I think. Most people are going to go through that when they start any business.
On that, funny fact, I forget the true stat, but supposedly, let's just say the people with the least liability, or I mean, honestly, the fact is prisoners, the people who came out of prison, yeah. They are some of the best, they start some of the best businesses. And it's because, yeah, so hey, if that's you, this is this is it. Yeah. But what meaning that is they come out of prison, they have nothing. You have nothing to lose. You are fresh. You don't have liability. You don't have a house, most cases, right? You don't have, children. Maybe you have children, but you don't have all these things. I mean, having a house, a car, a family that you want to take on vacations every year. Starting a business, you have the possibility to lose all of that. And it can be so scary. And that's what's going to hold back a lot of people. And that's why, like I said, I love the wedding business because of how low entry it is. And some of these, especially officiant in general, I think it costs like around $100, and you could make a few $100s per event. And the time suck from that, I've seen officiants show up for an hour and then leave. There's preparation. You got to maybe meet with, the bride and groom, or the groom, bride, and just sort of understand what they want in their ceremony. But if you get good at that and you can just like be a fun personality off the rip, like you can make a few $100s on the weekend doing two weddings. And that could just be a part-time thing, just an extra revenue stream. Pay for your groceries,
Exactly. So like on that note, like even with like the bar cart like industry, like what did you start with initially as far as gear? Did you have like the whole truck, or did you start with just doing the bartending?
No, we bought the truck first. So before everything, we bought the tap truck, and we didn't know anything, man. Like we didn't even know how to bartend properly. So we had to learn it all, and we bought it at the end of wedding season. So we had like all of winter, probably 4 or 5 months before our first booking, where we just figured it all out, bought all the other equipment as far as, the bar serving equipment. And again, there's so many legalities in this space. So there's a lot of things you need to know, which we have in the course, right? Yeah. And that will help you through that. It's not just cut and dry. You can't just show up and just pretend that you're a bartender. You have to have specific equipment, have, there's health and safety on the line, you know, just like a food caterer, right?
So if you don't mind me asking then, like theoretically, what would be like the most minimal setup you could start a bar cart service with?
Literally the most minimal thing you could do, go get tip certified in whatever state you're in. There's different, qualifications and certifications you need. But in Connecticut here, it's like $40. Get tip certified and become a dry hire bartender. You will literally make, you could charge $200 an hour. They give you the alcohol. You bring and you'll probably invest a few $100s in just like bar equipment, to make drinks. You could buy bar stop toppers, just things like that. And then most venues have a bar. So a lot of the times if you're in the wedding space, you just show up to a venue and there's a bar there. If you want to do this more so like on the private scale, small parties, then yeah, you need to buy a full bar. You're going to need to be portable with it. But you can just show up to a venue, serve at their bar, charge, $100 to $200 an hour. You're going to make tips. And you could have somebody else do it with you. It's a fun gig. And yeah, when you do a dry hire, you do need liability insurance, but you don't need a liquor license because you're not selling alcohol. So
no, makes sense.
Yeah, there's not a whole lot of gear involved in the mobile bar space if you want to go minimal.
That's awesome. So. Yeah, because I was just curious because obviously we are talking about beginners, and not everybody that's a beginner is going to have any funding really. Some people are going to have like $1,000 and they're wondering, can I start a mobile bar cart business? And it sounds to me like you probably could. You'd be limited on certain equipment, but as you grow the business, of course, once you have some bookings and you have some cash flow starting with the business, then you could always upgrade and get some things.
Right.
Yeah.
Prove the concept, right?
Yeah.
There's really easy ways to prove concepts, especially in the mobile bar space, just being a dry hire. Prove the concept. If you can get a bunch of bookings as a dry hire, imagine how many bookings you could get if you bought a really cool mobile bar, horse trailer or something, it invested a little bit of capital into it, and you're going to get more bookings because it's beautiful, it's cool, people want something unique at their weddings, something they're going to remember. Yeah.
Well, and especially it's super important, like we even were saying before, there's a lot of businesses out there, so finding that way to stand out. So of course, you might be able to start the business, but you're not going to, grow it as much until you do have that thing that's like your thumbprint on the industry. Like you guys have that, I forget what kind of car is it or vehicle?
Prosecco truck.
Prosecco, yeah. But is it a Cushman or something?
Oh, it's you're good.
Okay,
it's a Cushman, yeah. It was a meter truck in New York City, so that's what the vehicle is.
And there's gonna be brides out there that are specifically looking for that look.
Yeah, exactly.
And you're the only one around here maybe that's doing that. So it's that makes.
And that's the same with your business too, especially on the DJ side. Well, I mean, even more importantly on the videographer and photographer side, right? So couples are looking for a specific look. I know when we booked our photographer, my wife wanted a really, really specific look to all of our photos, style, right? And so, having that makes you stand out. Everybody's unique in their own ways, and the competition can be, it can be kind of skewed because you could offer something completely different than somebody else, even though you're doing the same exact thing.
Yeah. So that's why it's always best to not try to there's this idea, I think a lot of new beginners in business, and myself included, even early on in my business, think I just have to be the everything person, right? And obviously, in some way, my business is that because we're the one-stop shop photo video DJ. But with each of our services, we're very stylized. We don't we're not trying to, we're not going to say to the couple hey, we will do any photo style you've ever seen. No, we have a style, we have a look. We go for a very natural, authentic look. And some people don't like that, and that's fine. If they don't like that, we would rather them go work with somebody that does match their style. And I think that's super important within this space is having your niche and having your space to reach people, to reach that specific person that is going to be right for you as a vendor. And I'm sure it's the same with like I said, some people are looking for that classy Cushman vehicle that's going to pull up and they're going to be serving drinks outside into the sunset, right? And some people are going to prefer, maybe just the bartender that's just inside and, serving drinks to the people on the dance floor, and there's no right or wrong way. It's just you have to kind of pick one and decide hey, I'm going to be that, and I think that's important for all businesses once again, but especially in the wedding space because It's the most important day of the couple's
Exactly.
life. You know, we keep saying that, but
Right.
it's the truth. So
If you could tell yourself one thing before your first event that you had, what would you tell yourself?
man, before my first event, I would probably tell myself to just, focus on what the bride asked, what the couple wants. Don't get overwhelmed. Try to just maintain a calm composure, especially because everybody at the wedding is going to be all a little bit hectic, right?
Yeah.
The bridesmaids are going to be hectic because they're going to be running around trying to make sure that the bride is happy. The bride's going to be a little nervous because it's her big day. The groom's going to be nervous with his boys. He's going to be probably plugging beers. Things are going to be happening, and you kind of have to be that universal state of calm for everybody at the wedding. At least that's what I try to be. And maybe that's a little bit leaning into like the niche thing, like I said before too. Some photographers go for that like really big, like they'll yell at you and like try to keep you like on time. And I've seen some of them on social media. That's just not me. I'm more like, I want to make your day like stress-free. I want to make you chill.
As it should be.
And so I think for me, that was a big thing. Like the first couple of weddings I did, I would get like super nervous when things were happening, or I would get overwhelmed a little bit. And then it was just like, it clicked at some point that I was like, no, I got to be the guy that's calm. So if I'm feeling overwhelmed, honestly, if I was going to give myself a specific piece of advice, it would be, if you feel overwhelmed, take a walk to the bathroom, throw a little water on your face, catch your breath, and then go back. Rather than like just freaking out on the floor while things are going down. Because A, that's not going to look good for your business. If people see you like stressed, they want you to look like it's effortless.
Right.
And then B, if you're stressed, you're going to bring more stress to the table, which is, like I said, not what you want to do. You want to be calming down your bride and your groom, and all their family and friends. You want to be that like light, calm, relaxed person, But yeah, what about you? Like if you were to go back, what would be the first thing you'd say?
It wouldn't be too far off of yours. Essentially, tell myself that every wedding is different. Every wedding couple, let's put it that way, is going to be different. Everybody has so many different expectations, and sometimes like there's unpredictable things that are going to happen. And just understanding that, I was trying to be prepared for every possible scenario, and that's just not achievable, unfortunately. But once you get better at it, you know what to expect. I remember one time I ran out of Miller Lite, and my wife had to go get Miller Lite 3 separate times because we kept running out of Miller Lite. And I had all these beautiful cocktails. But hey, the event, everybody there, they wanted Miller Lites. So just something that I couldn't possibly prepare for, because I don't know who in the right mind would want that much Miller Lite. That was like the only thing people were drinking. But now we ask people very specifically, is there a specific drink that your crowd will drink just like fishes? And that's what they want. And if they say something, then we'll just get extra stock on that. So, yeah.
What would you say is your like biggest early win in the field?
The earliest win for us was, honestly, it was the first time bringing the tap truck to an event and just being comfortable with it. So we did events like some of our first events were without the tap truck, surprisingly. And there was a lot of just nervousness around transporting the tap truck, getting it there, getting it into the venue, and serving at it, because things are very different there than inside at a bar. I think our first win was likely just that, just getting to an event, being confident with our tap truck, having it there. Everybody loves it. That was our biggest win. How about yourself?
Honestly, for me, I would say my biggest win was more from a financial standpoint. Because
there you go.
For me, like, I remember, I used to actually, before I did the wedding business, I had a recording studio. And, in the music recording space, it's like a hit or miss depending on where you live, and who has money, who can afford it. And so for me, on my first business, I was averaging like, $400, $500 a month. Like, it was just like a side hustle, you know?
Yeah.
And then when it got to the point that I decided to start selling wedding stuff, I remember the first time I sold a deal that was a 4-figure check. I was like, whoa, I just got $2,000, just like that. And I remember feeling like that win was what kind of catapulted me to a place where I was like, wow, I could really see this being something viable as a full-time career. And just not only being viable as a full-time career, but knowing in my heart that it was also going to be doing something awesome. You know, it wasn't just going to be like, I'm going to go work at some corporate company and make a big paycheck. It was like, I'm going to make a good paycheck and I'm also going to do something that I love. Yeah. So, you know, I think that's always amazing when that can happen in any business. But yeah, for me, that was definitely my biggest win, was just like when I first made that 4-figure check and I saw it and I was like, wow, I just made this like that. That's awesome. So.
Right. Very few businesses actually succeed, right?
Yeah.
Entrepreneurship is not easy, right? So like we were saying earlier, just like taking that leap of faith and starting the business, you know, then realizing your revenue a few years later and being like, I can actually do this now full time. That's a huge win. That's fantastic. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and for me too, man, I shot my first wedding on a camera I got from school. It wasn't like a camera that I went out and picked and bought. It was just a camera that came with my school kit.
Yeah.
And I had one camera. And like to shoot a wedding video on one camera, now I would think that is insane. Like you need 3, but honestly, in the beginning, it makes sense. Like you got to work with what you have. And if a couple, you know, isn't high budget and they're looking for an affordable company, you know, and you're a beginner and you only have one camera, that's acceptable. You know, if they're paying top dollar, obviously you want to have a multi-cam operation set up. But for me in the beginning, you know, that's all I had. Yeah. And I made it work. And the reality is I was still able to make, you know, 4-figure checks, right, just doing a 1-camera setup. And I was having all my couples were extremely happy with the results. They loved it. So it's not always 100% even about the equipment. And I'm sure this even goes with your system, you know, in your business. It's also about like what you are providing. And if you guys have a great fun personality that you're providing with your bartending, that's going to go a longer way than if you had the Cushman.
Dude,
you know?
And it might even go a longer way than the bartending.
Yeah.
Right? People book you, and people, not even about the couple at this point, just the people at the wedding. Like as a photographer, you're dealing with the whole bridal party, right? And trying to organize people, and you got to like find the middle ground of how do I not make these people mad, you know, because you want them to enjoy their time. They're you know, the maid of honor or whatever, and they probably have a lot on their mind, and you're trying to tell them what to do. So I mean, not you, but some photographers are very pushy, right? And so just having a good personality in general in any business in this space is like critical.
Yeah. No, it's like that connection, and it's like people typically, and this is something we kind of talk more about in the course too, but like people don't really, especially in this industry, they don't buy, you know, just on logic. It's a lot of like an emotional thing. It's an emotional decision. There's like personality matters, you know, especially your photo and your video and your DJ. Like personality matters. Maybe a little less on video, because usually the video you want to be like a fly on the wall. Right. But for your photographer, they're going to be talking to you and your guests all day. So whether you want somebody that's more calm and going to be relaxing and de-stressing, or you want somebody that's going to be more in your face and upbeat and like wild, you know, whatever that vibe is that you're looking for, it's out there, and that's like what they're going to be looking for as the customer. So, you know, don't change yourself to fit other people's narrative. You know, be who you are and be that person like as boldly as you can, so that they know that that's you and that's your style. And yeah, so I think that's like so important. But
are there any myths to starting a wedding business, being a wedding business owner? Are there any myths out there you think that you can think of?
One of the biggest myths, actually, I would say, is that every bride is a bridezilla. Like, I feel like there's a lot of people that assume that all brides are just like chaos and they're mean or they're whatever. And honestly, that's not something I've seen a lot of personally. And I mean, at this point, I've done over 100 weddings. And of those weddings, I can say maybe once or twice I had an experience where a bride was a little bit more agitated or stressed. But usually brides are they're just nervous. You know, it's like a big day. Like we keep saying, it's the most important day of somebody's life. So of course it's natural for them to be nervous. But doesn't mean they're going to be a bridezilla. It doesn't mean they're going to like yell at you or be ruthless to you. Right. Most of the time, they're really cool people. You know, they're just normal people like you and me. Obviously, just like the real world, there's always a mixture. There's going to be some people that are good people and some people that are not as good people. But I really would say that I think that's probably the thing I've seen the least that I know I've heard about the most. Especially from people either that, that maybe tried the wedding business for a short time, they maybe had one bad experience and that bad experience made them think all brides were like that now.
Right.
And I feel like that's one thing that should be nipped in the butt, because most brides are they're just excited about their wedding. They want to make sure everything goes perfect. And it is our job, and we're getting paid a pretty penny to make sure that everything goes well for them. So I don't know. What about you? Any myths you think of?
That's a good one. I agree with you. I don't think I've really seen a true bridezilla. People these days are just so happy on their wedding day, as they should be. But for me, I guess it would just be that it's hard. To start a wedding business is hard. It sounds cheesy, but I seriously don't think it is that difficult, especially just because, and again, I come from a space that there's kind of limited competition, and I know of other professions that don't have too much competition. I know, videographers and photographers, there's a lot out there. So if that's a business that you're looking to explore, most of the time you're going to have competition, and you really got to stand out. But I think you can just start a business in the wedding space. And this is, again, I have started other businesses, online stores, lots of other things. And it's so flooded, so noisy. And knowing that the wedding business is a $70 billion business, think about if you could grab 0.0001% of it. You know what I mean? It's just a huge ocean that I think that there's unlimited potential in. So
yeah, 100%. Like we said before, $70 billion of potential. So it's this is not a small drop in the pond. This is one of the biggest industries in the world, period.
Yeah.
Everybody gets married. Yeah.
Growing. I looked at a chart. It did go down during COVID.
Of course.
Yeah. But I mean, it was year after year. I think back in the early 2010s, it was just bypassing 50 billion. So huge growth.
Yeah.
So yeah, fantastic.
No, and honestly, I think this would be a great way to segue into why we built this course. Because obviously, we're talking about, what would somebody actually want to build their own wedding business for? And obviously, there's a lot of money to be made. It's a great industry to be in, and it's fun. But so we really created this course just to give people a clear roadmap as to how you can go about starting a wedding business that's not only going to be successful, but it's going to be long lasting and something that you can do for a long time and enjoy.
And if you're going to get to that point, you're going to have to go through the first few years of struggle, right? And so, WedBegin is really designed to help you cut through that first 2.5 years where you're really going to have to, you're in the trenches, you're figuring out how to run your business. That's where we come in.
Yeah, and plus the course is built by people like you and me who have built six-figure businesses in the wedding space, which is just something that I think is so important, because otherwise, you're not going to be led by the blind leading the blind is never going to be a good experience. So, knowing that this course is built by people that have built successful six-figure businesses is such a valuable asset in itself.
So the two of us together kind of build a Swiss Army knife. Us as resources, leading this course, we're here for you, and we made this for you to help you. We want to see other wedding businesses come into the industry, other wedding professionals succeed, and there's not a whole lot of resources out there from that 0 to 5,000, right? There's a lot of resources when you're even further along in your business, but we're here to help you start, right? So Eli is fantastic at sales, client management. With my background, I bring in business systems, branding, and marketing. So we're here, we're ready to help, and we really helped design this course for that.
Yeah, and it's ideal for anybody really trying to start a wedding business, whether it's photography, videography, DJs, bar carts, planners. A lot of the knowledge that we provide, especially in our discovery course, is pretty universal. It's going to be able to be used by most people as long as you're just starting and you're getting your feet wet into the wedding industry.
How much faster would you have grown if you had a roadmap like WedBegin?
Honestly, man, I think it's hard to actually pinpoint exactly how much more I would have grown. but I can say that I definitely would have grown faster. Just knowing the things that I know now and being able to provide those to myself in hindsight would be, it's like they say, hindsight is 20/20, and that is the most true statement anyone could say, especially when it comes to owning a business, because in the beginning, there's going to be so many things you just don't know. And those things, it's hard to calculate how much not knowing X or Y is actually going to affect the time on how fast you're able to grow. So I think, just having like even half the things that we teach in this course is like invaluable to starting a business. Yeah. How about you? Do you think, like, how do you think this would have affected your start with the bar cart?
Just confidence. From the confidence standpoint, having a course like this, if I would have taken a course like this, I would have been so much more confident starting the business and getting through those first few years where I'm trying to figure out the wedding industry, going to the right expos, meeting the right people, making the right relationships with venues. This course would have been an amazing tool. And let's face it, it's so important to have second income streams, multiple revenue streams. A course like this would have been tremendous. It would have been a huge value add to myself and the business to have like literally everything set out like we have in this course as a guide, right? Yeah. Because it's really difficult those first few years, making the right relationships with venues, other vendors, what expos to go to, how to get exposure on social media. Those are all very difficult things. And if you're listening to this podcast, you may already be in the industry, but you're likely not, and you're exploring the opportunity. So that's what we're here for. That's what we specialize in. And we have everything laid out for you. So
yeah. And the number one question that people really ask when it comes to like knowing if they should join this course is, well, how do I know that doing this course is going to actually have a benefit on me when it comes to starting my business? And the simple answer I could give to that is, it's really not just the course, it's you. If you're gonna go into this course with the mindset of, I'm gonna watch a few videos and then I'm gonna have a successful six-figure business, then it probably isn't for you. But if you're the kind of person that knows that you're gonna jump into this course and you're gonna dive in full force and actually take all the information you get and use it actively, you're gonna see such tremendous benefits that like me and him just mentioned, that we would have seen in our own businesses even if we had a course like this to start. So it comes down to you and how much energy and time you're willing to put into something like this.
It's seriously time to get intentional, right?
Yeah.
Stop Googling how to start a business or using ChatGPT to kind of guide you through everything. Learn from people who have been there, started. We have resources and other people as well that have helped us with this course to provide the feedback and the knowledge that we're going to provide you, right? And so, yeah, just be intentional, right? Invest in yourself. That's like the best investment that you can make. If you can skip the first 2-3 years of that struggle in business, you're gonna get your money's worth, right?
Yeah. Before we wrap up, generally, like, do you think there's any other like types of people that this type of course is perfect for, or like, is it just for people that are starting? Like, I don't know. I kind of think that there's more people, but I'm curious what you think.
Yeah, I think that there's every single person has the opportunity to get into the wedding industry, and I think that now is the most important. I don't think it's ever been more important, and it hasn't been a better time, because in the U.S., our economy is shaky. Things are in question. Having another revenue stream or starting to build another revenue stream is essential. Beyond just your salaried position, your W-2 job, whatever it is, build another revenue stream. If you're a photographer, start a photography business. If you love music, make the investment in some DJ equipment and start doing weddings on the side. I think it's just so important right now to build other revenue streams, because we all need a little extra money, a little extra confidence, and more skills, right? So
well, and plus it's kind of like even like what you said earlier about the idea that we need to test it first, right? Yeah. And so some people might feel that way, and I did. When I first started, I was doing my business on the side, and it got to a point where, like I said, I had to decide, is it worth it for me to put all of my time into building my business? And you'll know pretty quick, like if you, A, you love the business, B, you can make enough money at it if you were to put more time into it. And, just like you'll be able to tell pretty quick once you start the business. So I agree though. I think like it could be a great side hustle for some people, even if it's just something that you do to have fun. Maybe you think it's fun and it's fun and you can make some money. Some people are in this industry solely because they like it,
Yeah.
And I'm pretty much one of those people myself. I mean, of course the money's great, but I'm in it really because I love it. I could do a lot of other things to make a lot of money, but the wedding space is just awesome.
Yeah, and working for yourself, everybody, there's always that cliche, you want to work for yourself, you want to be your own boss. But I think it's just having the independence beyond just working for somebody. You're relying on someone else's income or profit to then give you money, right? What if you just relied on yourself? Like, what if you just gave yourself all the confidence, all the resources, started your own thing? It's going to be tough, right? But there's resources like WedBegin for that, and there's people out there that can help you. So start your own thing. Believe in yourself, give yourself the confidence.
So if you're thinking about starting a wedding business, start. Now is the time. Like we just said, this is the best time in history to be starting a wedding business. It's profitable, it's fun, it's booming, and it's all the things that anybody would want in a new business, especially for all the other aspects we mentioned. The low costs to the high profitability. Like, it's just a great industry all around, and now really is the time to start. And you started in the right place, because the WedBegin podcast is just a sliver of what we have to offer as far as knowledge that we're going to be able to provide. And you're going to get so much more of that by signing up for our course, because this is so value packed for anybody that's starting a new journey into the wedding space.
We really put a lot of work into this course to help you, because we want to see you succeed. I love all the other vendors in this space. I love, everybody is so kind, so nice, and it's just a happy space. The wedding industry is always happy, and we're literally doing things on the best day of people's lives, right? So, and that's when we do business, right?
Yeah.
We make money when other people are happy. So, yeah. I love the wedding industry, and we're excited to have you hear us out this podcast. And like I said, our course is we put a lot of work into it, and we want you to get value out of it. So
so if you did really get some value out of this podcast, like we hope you did, please be sure to like, subscribe, and hit that bell for notifications, because we're gonna be having plenty more podcasts coming out with some other reputable professionals in the wedding space that are going to provide more detailed value on different elements of the space as well. And we're going to be providing all kinds of content and all kinds of value along with this course offering we're working on. So this has been the WedBegin podcast,
where wedding businesses begin.